Greetings, friends! And welcome to a video that has been a long time in coming, talking a little bit about the SEGA Dreamcast and my own experiences with the console. The one console, the one piece of video game hardware out of all of the platforms that I have owned that has given me the highest of highs and the lowest of lows in the shortest amount of time. In 1999, honestly, I had no interest in Sega right away. I was really a Sony PlayStation fan still at that point, with Nintendo 64 plugging a few holes here and there. PlayStation gave me all of the kind of games that I wanted. They were giving me arcade ports, they were giving me sports games, they were giving me action games. There were even a few first-person shooters out there if I was interested in those. It was really the console I always wanted, and I was happy with that. And Nintendo was still doing their thing with the N64. So I don't know that I really needed another console in my life at that point. And interestingly enough, it took being introduced to Sonic Adventure, which you see here on the GXTV, to really start my interest in the Dreamcast. And it was something that I wasn't prepared for. I walked into Fantasy Realms, which was a local independent video game store in West Springfield, Mass. Not too far from where I live right now, honestly. I knew the owner very well. And when I walked in one day, he's like, Pete, I got to show you this game. And of course, anything that he wanted to show me, I was in on because he was in the business. I wanted to know what he knew. So he took me back to where his console play area was, and he puts this game in. He's like, I'm not going to tell you anything about the game. I don't want you to say anything. I just want you to try it. And sure enough, it was Sonic Adventure. And when I first heard the music, when I heard the guitars, when I heard Crush 40, and then when I started to play the game and I saw how much better the graphics were over what I had been playing on the PlayStation and N64 for the last couple of years, I started to rethink my relationship with Sega, which to that point, again, had been really non-existent. I skipped the Saturn altogether. I was disappointed with the 32X. I still can't fathom why I spent money on that thing. I traded that away towards my PlayStation, and even the Sega CD was okay. I like FMV games, but it really wasn't the big hit I was hoping it was going to be. So this game right here really opened my interest in something that I would eventually go really, really crazy on. We're talking all in when it came to September 9th, 1999. I started to check off games that I wanted at launch. I knew that I wanted things. I wanted to do this launch bigger than any I had ever done. I was working for Funko Land as a manager at the time, and while I was making an okay amount of money, I was also getting married later that year. I was in a relationship. I was, living in an apartment. I had bills, which I hadn't had as many of in console launches in the past. So where was I going to come up with more than $700? Well, stupid me, and I will knock on my head in front of the camera and call myself dumb. I did trade away my Nintendo collection, which was about 100 games or so, including RC Pro-Am 2. Yep, you can go ahead and boo. I can hear you already. I traded all that away because I wanted to get the latest and greatest. I wanted to get this thing on day one. So between trade-ins and then paying cash out of pocket, which was no insignificant amount, I spent more than $700 just after 1 a.m. on September 9th, 1999. And I'm going to share with you some of the games that I bought because I've been able to replace them. Sonic Adventure, of course, was a must. I needed to have that game because I had been playing it in my Funko Land store. We got advanced Dreamcast units, and we got Sonic Adventure, we got Blue Stinger, and I think there was one other game that we got. I'm just not remembering what it is off the top of my head. But we got those 3 games to start with, and I would play them whenever I had downtime in the store, so just to get myself psyched and ready to go. But this wasn't the only game that I got. I also had to get VMUs, visual memory units, because you needed those for memory cards. This is the original VMU, and I would later get a brand new VMU when I got this Dreamcast that I have now, and I won't open this. And the really cool thing about these is they had their own screen. So not only could you use this as a memory card and bring it to friends' houses or whatever, or to save your progress, but there are certain games you could play mini games right on the screen. Now, as luck would have it, we were supposed to get these in the US, but we never did. Sony came out with their own called the Pocket Station about a year later. We just didn't get this here in the US. I got this at Too Many Games in July. Something that I don't use. It does work, but I don't use it. And then the games, of course. And yes, I got plenty of those. Air Force Delta, which was supposed to be an ace combat killer, but never really made it. Tokyo Extreme Racer. I think this was a launch title, although I could be wrong on this. You can correct me in the comments if I am. A really cool looking racing game with generally 60 frames per second animation, which was pretty impressive. Sega Bass Fishing. I am not a fishing guy, but between this and between Fisherman's Bait, I will play arcade fishing games all day. This one I'm going to talk a little bit more about. This is NFL 2K, the game that launched the 2K Sports franchise. When I saw this, and when I played it, I was wondering, Madden who? Madden to me felt like it was kind of in a rut at that point, and this game just screamed to me. The commentary was pretty solid. The presentation was good. The animation, again, was 60 frames for the most part. It looked really good. It played well. The AI was pretty challenging. And it didn't feel quite as simulated or simmy as Madden felt or was starting to feel. This felt like it had at least some arcade undertones to it, so it felt more accessible to me, which I really appreciated. Of course, we got NFL 2K until NFL 2K5, and then EA kind of took the exclusive license, and well, that was that. What else? Oh, yes. Soul Calibur, perhaps the crown jewel of the Dreamcast launch window. This game still holds up today and is absolutely gorgeous. Sounds great, too. And the solo play, playing this game alone, there's still so much stuff to unlock that you can play through it again and again and have a blast doing it. Then we get to the midway games. Games like Mortal Kombat Gold, Ready to Rumble Boxing. Both of those I only have disc only, so I'm not going to put those on camera. But Hydro Thunder, which is a great arcade game. I wish that the home version had a little more punch to it, especially in the sound department, like the sit-down arcade game did. But that's okay. It still looks and plays really well. And then, of course, the game I was really looking forward to, NFL Blitz 2000, which ran very, very close to arcade perfect. Despite the Dreamcast controller getting in the way here and there, a lot of fun to play, and is still a lot of fun to play to this very day. Probably the closest to having the arcade game at home experience for Blitz as we are ever going to get. Flag to Flag was another game that I got. I didn't get House of the Dead 2 because I didn't feel like getting a light gun, but that was another launch game. But I mean, the games kept coming even after launch, and I would just buy them whenever I could. Virtua Tennis, for example, awesome arcade game, made even better for the home with the addition of mini games and a World Tour mode. A lot of fun to play. NBA Showtime, another almost arcade perfect version of a coin-op from Midway. Fantastic game. I was playing this again recently and had a blast doing it. Role-playing games? Sure, it's got role-playing games. How about Grandia 2? Fantastic game for the Dreamcast. Not quite the level of a Final Fantasy per se, but still a lot of fun to play regardless. And we're finally getting the third one of these. This is Shenmue for the Dreamcast, which had multiple discs in it. In fact, it also has an online passport disc. I'm going to try and show this to you without dropping anything. That's this right here, where you could jump online because, oh, by the way, the Dreamcast could go online, and you could do some other things. So that's pretty neat. I got that at Retro World Expo last year. And the last Dreamcast game that I ever bought, this is Metropolis Street Racer, which eventually became Project Gotham Racing for the Xbox and Xbox 360. We do miss, or at least I do miss, Bizarre Creations, but this was the last game that I got. So the Dreamcast had games. It had the technology, it looked great, and even though the PlayStation 2 was coming and would eventually make a big dent in Dreamcast sales, I was pretty happy being a Dreamcast owner. In 2000, I was having a ball. I was having the best of all three worlds. PlayStation was killing it that year with all kinds of RPGs. Square released Vagrant Story and Chrono Cross and Final Fantasy IX. The sports games were still good. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 came out that year. So PlayStation was just in control still, despite being an aging console. The Nintendo 64 was still pumping out good games. And then I had the Dreamcast, which was the more modern of the three consoles. So it was really the best from all fronts. And life was good. Life was good until January of 2001 for me. I was surfing around on GameSpot. Remember GameSpot? Back when they were part of Ziff Davis. I was active on their forums a lot. And people were talking on the forums about some kind of crazy notion that Sega was going to discontinue the Dreamcast. And I was beside myself. This thing is barely a year and a half old. How is Sega going to pull the plug? I did not want to believe it. But then the news started to break on other websites. Sega to announce discontinuation of the Dreamcast. Sega getting out of hardware. Sega going software only. There are two things about reading this news. First of all, I was sick as a dog. I had been to the doctor a couple of times. I was getting over some kind of flu or pneumonia or whatever the heck it was. So I was home from work for like 3 days. So I was sick. And now with this news broke, I was also angry. I was irrationally angry. I felt betrayed. Not that a company owes me anything, but I felt betrayed. After having sunk all of this money in the Dreamcast from the launch on, pimping this system when I was working for FuncoLand to everybody who walked in the door because I was genuinely excited about it. This is the next big thing. This is the future. This is going to be a great system. It's going to last you a while. And I just felt, like I said, I felt betrayed. I think that's really the best word that I could use other than angry. So the next day, with my wife looking on, I took all of my Dreamcast stuff, all of the games, the system, the controller, or the controllers, the VMUs, I put it all in a trash bag, and I took it down to Fantasy Realms, which is where this story comes full circle. And I put it on the counter, and I said to the owner, first of all, I asked him, I said, do you have any new PlayStation 2s in stock? Now, in January of 2001, PS2s were still supply constrained. But it just so happened, because I was homesick from work still, there was one new PS2 unit left on his shelf. And I said, I want it, and I'm going to trade all this stuff in for it. And he looked at it, saw that it was my entire Dreamcast collection, kind of scratched his head a little bit, and asked me, are you sure you want to do this? And I'm just, yep, this is what I'm going to do. Trying not to get angry again. So it gives me a fair price for all of these things, and I wound up walking out of his store that day with the PlayStation 2, a memory card, Ridge Racer 5, NHL 2001, Madden 2001, and Swing Away Golf. A lot of stuff. So I got a really, really good deal for what I traded in. And he asked me at the end of the transaction as I was leaving, why are you trading all of this stuff in? And that's when I clued him in. I said, you're going to hear tomorrow that Sega's going to be discontinuing the Dreamcast, and this stuff is going to be not the next big thing anymore. And then I walked out. And at that point, I washed my hands of Sega. I was done. I didn't want to really deal with them anymore. I was beside myself. We weren't going to get Shenmue 2. How is that even possible? After loving the first game, we weren't going to get the second? Granted, we got it for the Xbox, but why couldn't I get it for a console I owned? The first Sega games that I wound up getting after my angry divorce from Sega were the two Sonic Adventure games for the GameCube, which I won in a GamePro competition. And after that, I slowly let go of some of the anger. I would buy Beach Spikers for the GameCube, for example. I bought the Sega Tennis version for the PS2. And of course, Sega sports games I still bought because they were, to me, the best on the market. Honestly, it took 10 years for me to start to get over this irrational anger. And I'll be the first person to tell you I had no reason to feel that way. I had no reason to be that angry or to feel betrayed because Sega owed me nothing. But from my perspective, after trading away all of the stuff that I traded away, after dropping all that money on launch night, after talking up their items, after being so excited, allowing myself to feel excited about Sega again, probably more than I ever had. the news that I had read that Sega was discontinuing the console was really the straw that broke the camel's back. And I was just, I was, as you can hear, because just talking about it now, I still feel some of the anger still comes back from time to time. But in 2011, when I moved back here to Massachusetts from Arizona, and life wasn't going very well, and I had decided that I was really getting away from modern console gaming, and I wanted to go back to retro, which is what I started with the NES and with the Genesis. And that's when I started to reevaluate how I felt, and that I wanted to get a Dreamcast again. And it took me a while. It took me 5 years to get one, until I got one from I was at Retro World Expo last October, which came in the box, and is the Dreamcast that I'm playing Sonic Adventure on now behind me on the GX TV. And now things have come full circle. Now I'm not looking at the Dreamcast as something that let me down or that I'm angry about, but something that just has a lot of great games for it, and a lot of games that I think still hold up today. It was the last console that really focused on arcade perfect ports. Crazy Taxi was just so close to arcade perfect without the steering wheel. NFL Blitz 2000 and NBA Showtime were so close to arcade perfect. Gauntlet Legends was pretty close to arcade perfect. Street Fighter Alpha 3 was very close to arcade perfect. Power Stone, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. These fighting games were just so close to being in arcades. It was like having an arcade at home, and that was so important to me, and to be honest, it still is, which is the reason that I own the system. That, in the plethora of great sports games, and really the birth of the 2K Sports empire while it lasted, were notable to me as someone who's a fan of sports games. And that's why I'm very happy to own it in my collection once again. You do hear some of the anger in my voice, and perhaps I haven't let all of my bad feelings go. But it's a funny story, because after that point, there was only one system that I bought at launch ever again, and that was the GameCube, and that was it. Buying systems at launch, I got away from, and slowly but surely, as the years have gone on, I've graduated away from buying games at launch too. I've taken a more cynical look, or a more skeptical look at these games, and have let patience take over. And Dreamcast plays a role in that. I can't get around that. So, to you, Dreamcast, for all of the memories, for the good ones and for the bad ones, I owe you. And I'm glad to have you in my collection once again. As always, thanks for watching. And until the next time, everybody, take care.